outside to get their papers were wearing business suits, not the ratty bathrobes Lilith's neighbors often wore. A well-coiffed woman walking her Great Dane waved good morning, but Lilith didn't have time for pleasantries. She ducked through the concrete pedestrian tunnel that ran beneath the highway. Trumbull Preparatory School sat on the corner of High Meadow Road and Highway 2, which Lilith mostly associated with stressful trips to the emergency room when Bruce got really sick. Speeding down the pavement in her mother's purple minivan, her brother wheezing faintly against her shoulder, Lilith always gazed out the window at the green signs on the side of the highway, marking the miles to other cities. Even though she hadn't seen much, anything outside of Crossroads, Lilith liked to imagine the great, wide world beyond it. She liked to think that someday, if she ever graduated, she'd escape to a better place. The late bell was ringing when she emerged from the tunnel near the edge of campus. She was coughing, her eyes burning. The smoldering wildfires in the hills that encircled her town wreathed the school in smoke. The brown stucco building was ugly and made even uglier by its papering of student-made banners. One advertised tomorrow's basketball game, another spelled out the details for the after-school science fair meeting, but most of them featured blown-up yearbook photos of some jock named Dean, who was trying to win votes for prom king. At Trumbull's main entrance stood Principal Tarkington. He was barely over 5 feet tall and wore a burgundy polyester suit.
"Late again, Miss Foscor,"
he said, studying her with distaste.
"Didn't I see your name on yesterday's detention list for tardiness?"
Funny thing about detention, Lilith said. I seem to learn more there staring at the wall than I ever have in class.
"Get to first period," Tarkington said, taking a step toward Lilith. "And if you give your mother 1 second of trouble in class today—"
Lilith swallowed. My mom's here? Her mom substituted a few days a month at Trumbull, earning a tuition waiver that was the only reason she could afford to send Lilith to the school. Lilith never knew when she might find her mom waiting ahead of her in the cafeteria line or blotting her lipstick in the ladies' room. She never told Lilith when she would be gracing Trumbull's campus, and she never offered her daughter a ride to school. It was always a horrible surprise, but at least Lilith had never walked in on her mother substituting in one of her own classes. Until today, it seemed. She groaned and headed inside, wondering which of her classes her mom would turn up in. She was spared in homeroom, where Mrs. Richards had already finished the roll and was furiously writing on the board about ways students could help with her hopeless campaign to bring recycling to campus. When Lilith walked in, the teacher shook her head wordlessly, as if she were simply bored by Lilith's habitual lateness. She slid into her seat, dropped her guitar case at her feet, and took out the biology book she just grabbed from her locker. There were 10 precious minutes left in homeroom, and Lilith needed them all to cram for her test. "Mrs. Richards," the girl next to Lilith said, glaring in her direction. "Something suddenly smells awful in here." Lilith rolled her eyes. She and Chloe King had been enemies since day 1 of elementary school, though she couldn't remember why. It wasn't like Lilith was any kind of threat to the rich, gorgeous senior. Chloe modeled for Crossroads Apparel and was a lead singer of a pop band called the Perceived Slights, not to mention the president of at least half of Trumbull's extracurricular clubs. After more than a decade of Chloe's nastiness, Lilith was used to the constant rain of attacks. On a good day, she ignored them. Today, she focused on the genomes and phonemes in her bio book and tried to tune Chloe out. But now the other kids around Lilith were pinching their noses. The kid in front of her mimed a retching motion. Chloe swiveled in her seat. "Is that your cheap idea of perfume, Lilith? Or did you just crap your pants?" Lilith remembered the mess Alistair had left by her bedside and the shower she hadn't been able to take, and felt her cheeks burn. She grabbed her things and bolted from the classroom, ignoring Mrs. Richardson's ravings about a hall pass, and ducked into the closest bathroom. Inside, alone, she leaned against the red door and closed her eyes. She wished she could hide in here all day, but she knew once the bell rang, this place would be flooded with students. She forced herself to the sink. She turned on the hot water, kicked off her shoe, raised her offending foot into the basin, and pumped the cheap pink soap dispenser. She glanced up, expecting to see her sad reflection, and instead, she found a glittery poster taped over the mirror. "Vote King for Queen," it read below a professional headshot of a beaming Chloe King.